I asked you for your hottest Splatoon 3 take, and let's just say you didn't disappoint. Starting off with a decently spicy take, GoodTuber is good. Well, I can't say I completely disagree, and if you know my channel, you might have actually seen me playing GoodTuber in one of my previous videos. I think the weapon is fun, and can work in the right hands in solo queue. Competitive is a completely different story though. Missiles are only being played against eliters and sniper riders, weapons that are sitting very far back most of the time, and at the moment the only missile weapon being played by pro players is the Spatana Viper Deco. GoodTuber just doesn't have much going for it when compared to other high mid-range weapons. Sure, the paint is pretty nice, torpedo and missiles are a great kit, and if you hit every shot, it might actually work, but without aimbot, I would rather have a Squeezer or Nautilus on my team. It's also hard to implement into an actual team comp because what would it actually replace? Do you play it as a backline replacement with the only task being to spam missile against the enemy backline since it can't compete against their range? Or do you actually try to run it instead of a Squeezer or Nautilus, which both are just more consistent? So yeah, I think it's a fun weapon that is a bit better than what people give it credit for, and definitely far better than it used to be in Splatoon 2, where you had to guess if your shot actually did enough damage to kill someone, and both kits were far weaker than the ones we have now. Now, this next one is up in the spice level by a lot. Crab meta was better, healthier, and more playable than actual Zuka meta. Now, I don't know exactly how you personally define a better, healthier, more playable meta. What makes a good competitive meta? Being fun to play or fun to watch? Diversity of weapons, flow of the game, high level of strategy? Since I don't know your exact criteria, let's just talk about two aspects. First off, I absolutely disagree on crab meta being healthier and more playable. At its absolute peak, crab meta was about as boring to watch as Splatoon 2's late armor and missile meta. The game had very little actual interaction between players since everything was about getting a crab cycle going. This meant that at least two splasher medics on a team would only go for paint and burst bomb spam and avoid fights as to not lose their special charge to chain one crab after another. Whenever a team had established good control of the objective, getting back in without two crab tanks of your own was nearly impossible, since flanking and getting picks with only a main weapon rarely happened because of Splatoon 3's map design. So yeah, if you like cycling crabs and holding down areas for 9 seconds for a teammate to then use another crab during which you can farm your next crab, I guess the meta was better. But everyone else that wanted to play a weapon that wasn't Splash, Sloshing Machine, or maybe Flingser Roller, the crab meta remains as the worst meta since the launch of Splatoon 3. The other, maybe even more important point is about weapon diversity. This has both an impact on players and viewers, since seeing the same 3 weapons on your screen at all time is just incredibly boring. So yeah, in my opinion, crab meta was not healthier than the current one. Of course, Trizuka has become much stronger recently, and sometimes double or even triple splattershot became a thing. So weapon diversity took a big dip. But thanks to Tacticula and other strong main weapons like Nautilus or Stamper that have a good matchup against the Splattershot, this meta is much more enjoyable in my opinion. Splatoon 2's story mode bosses are better than Splatoon 3's bosses aside from Mr. Grizz. This one is very subjective of course, but I personally liked fighting the Deep Cut members more, and of course the fight against Mr. Grizz felt like an epic climax to the story. In Splatoon 2, you had to fight the Octo Oven, Octo Samurai, Octo Stomp, and Octo Shower before facing DJ Octavio, and while they all had their own fun mechanics, they were very similar to Splatoon 1's boss fights and weren't fleshed out as characters. Yeah, their designs were pretty cool, but so are Deep Cuts, and I really like how Deep Cut was actually involved in the story instead of just talking on radio once in a while. I do think Splatoon 2's bosses, especially in the Octo expansion, are more challenging and therefore more fun to fight for skilled players though. Stingray was healthy for Splatoon 2. Not much on Rainmaker though, is one of the hottest takes in this video, and honestly, I don't even know where to start. So the deadly laser that can kill you from the other side of the map through walls wasn't really fun to play against in my opinion, especially since weapons like Jet Squelcher had 180 points for special until version 5.5.0, when they got raised to 190, yay! Still, it was spammed a crazy amount and simply frustrating to play against because the only counterplay was armor, so it has less impact, or have your own Stingray fight them from your base. I think it was almost as bad for tower control as in Rainmaker, and it made some long and narrow maps on Splat Zones and Clamblitz absolute hell. Stingray in Splatoon was extremely unenjoyable to play against for any weapon that didn't have Stingray themselves. until the rise of missiles, which has the same flawed design and promotes very little interaction with enemy players. So I'm honestly pretty happy that I don't have to play Splatoon 2 anymore. But if you enjoyed Stingray, that's completely fine too, of course. The next hot take is V-Brella is worse than V Undercover. Debating about whether Brella or Undercover is worse is like arguing over which of two bags full of trash would taste better. But I actually agree with this. The base Brella kit with Sprinkler and Tri-Strike is just not worth to be played, and is probably the weakest out of all the Brellas currently in the game. Don't get me wrong, Undercover Brella is still shit if you play against good players, but has in my opinion the more well-rounded kit, and can at least be annoying and even pretty good if you play against players that don't know how to deal with it. But the Splat Brella has nothing going for it, because with Sorella Brella, it even has a second, much better kit. The next take is Splattershot Nova can fight surprisingly well if used correctly. Saying X weapon is good if players did X thing makes sense on the first thought. For example, Good Huber is good if players hit every shot. Flash Blaster is good if you only hit directs. Or 96 is OP if you hit the first two shots. You maybe notice what I did here. Anything, if used correctly, can be very strong. But if nobody out of the 11 million people that own a copy of Splatoon 3 is able to do it, maybe the weapon just isn't as strong. What I mean to say is that yes, Nova can fight, it can get kills. If I join a ranked lobby, I will be able to get a 20+ or more kill round within a few games. If I have to play against Starburst, Jackpot, Alliance Rogue, or other top teams with Nova, I will notice very quickly that even if I use the weapon close to perfection, I won't be able to get a favorable matchup against most of their weapons simply because of the weaknesses of my main weapon. So yeah, against bad players, any good player will be able to farm kills no matter the weapon they are using. But when playing against similarly skilled players that will simply kill you in half the time it takes for you to kill them, Nova just doesn't stand a chance. The Dynamo is the best weapon ever. No, Super Chump is one of the best specials in the game. Now, as much as I love Super Chump, I sadly just can't agree with you on this one. Chumps have gone from being pretty much the worst special to being good in Turf War, decent on zones, and still useless in Tower Control, Rainmaker, and Cloudlets. I think the main reason for why Chumps are good in only two modes is because in Turf War and Splat Zones, they actually impact the objective. But for Tower Control, Rainmaker, and Cloudlets, they're purely meant for displacement and distraction. And other displacement specials like Booyah Bomb, Tri-Strikes, and Missiles are so strong, they often decide games in those other modes. So while I would hug a Super Chump if I could, they're sadly just not as strong as some of the best specials in the game. So this is it for the first edition of me reacting to your Splatoon 3 hot takes. I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, please leave a like and subscribe, and maybe I will do more of these. Thank you for watching, and see ya in the next one.